Happy Tuesday. I have some revelations that I want to share with you guys. Let me just make sure I'm live. And one of my random lives again. So probably in the middle of the day. So, okay, let me just double check that you guys can hear me. Okay, so staying committed to sharing things that I find that I hope may help someone else, okay? And this is for my entrepreneurs, especially my kingdom entrepreneurs, all right? Especially people that are learning how to invite God into your business, because it's so easy to say that, but then the question is, like, how do you actually do that? So that has been something that I have been praying on heavily, and I wanted to share this insight. So I did share my last insight from the book of Exodus. So if you haven't seen that, you can go to the guide section and you can watch that. But I talked about the tabernacle and planning. I'm actually in the book of Numbers right now, but I went back and did some reflection on Genesis. And so I just love this because I'm telling you, like, when you pray and seek God, He definitely answers. So these are some of my reflections from the stories in Genesis. Sorry, I've seen my internet. Okay, so these are my reflections from some of the stories in Genesis on how to let God into your business, as well as how to have faith in your seasons, okay? So I'm going to start Genesis verse 21 through 7. This is the part of the story where God finally gives his promise to Abraham and Sarah. They actually give him a son. So one of the key notes that I take from this is that Sarah laughed at it. She was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe this is actually happening, right? But here are the 3 points that I take away from this. And this is for people who are in different seasons, different waiting seasons, right? Like, God has made you a promise. He has given you a vision. He has shown you, something of your future, and you're waiting for that to come to pass. So one, especially when you're building your faith, God always fulfills his promises. Always fulfills his promises, okay? So if you ever needed to have any strength in your faith, just lean on the fact that he's always going to fulfill his promise. Number 2, Sarah missed out on the peace from all of the peace of God's promise, from all of the fear and worry and doubt that she had. She could have had peace while waiting for God's promise, but instead, because she was like, I believe you, God, that you're going to give me a son in my old age. I just don't know how, right? So she believed that God would fulfill his promise, but she didn't know how he was going to fulfill his promise. So she spent her whole time in fear, in worry, and in doubt. So she missed out on just having peace the whole time. So that's number 2. The point number 3 is that despite Sarah trying to do all the things her way and constantly messing up, right? Like giving her concubines or her servants or whatever to Abraham, like just doing all the things, like fighting with Hagar, just like doing all the things, like it doesn't really matter, but God still fulfilled his promise. So if you are in a waiting season between the vision that God has given you to fulfilling his promise, you can see here that one, like you can either choose to have fear, worry, and doubt while you're waiting for the promise, or you can choose to let God lead, which is what we're going to talk about in a second, and invite his peace in. So a lot of us, we use fear, we have fear, worry, and doubt. And then we also try to take God's promise into our own hands. And then look what happens. We literally end up with like a Sarah, Hagar situation, a life filled of fear, worry, doubt, problems, right? We create our own problems on the way to the promise. And yes, we still get the promise, but it's like we didn't have to take that ride. Like we could have just learned how to be obedient and submit to God and have a more peaceful ride. So what I take away from chapter 21, verse 7, is that let God fulfill his promise and do not, stay in fear, worry, and doubt by trying to do things your own way. Okay? So God always comes through, okay? No matter what. So instead of suffering, find peace in his grace. Like, let him lead, right? So what you actually do in your waiting season is you build your character, you build your faith, you steward over whatever you have now, okay? So then the other takeaway that I have is so this is talking about building your faith, and I'm going to talk about, and I'm specifically talking about business in this realm. But, and then after building your faith, how do you actually let God in? Okay. So now we're going to jump to, I didn't write the chapter down, but, I'm sure you can find it. But in Genesis, the next part of Genesis, where Rebekah, she hears God's promise, right? That, Jacob is going to, be the one to lead. But what does she do? She believes God, but she doesn't know how it's going to come to pass, right? Doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't it seem like exactly what Sarah just did? So she helps Jacob steal his birthright. She takes matters into her own hands, even though God already said the promise was going to come to pass. So it seems like people aren't listening. And even though people aren't listening, God is still providing. So what can we take a page from these two stories in the book of Genesis? Like, we haven't even gotten into a part of the Bible, we just started the Bible, and we're already seeing a common theme that we live is that when we get a promise, we try to take the matters into our own hands because we don't know how to be obedient. We focus too much on the how. Okay, we try to take it into our own hands. So she has this whole plan. She steals Esau's birthrights, and guess what? Even though she still gets the blessing, she suffers the whole time. Isn't that something that we go through, especially when it comes to building our business? We suffer the whole time. We go through the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, when God has always provided a better way, right? We don't allow his peace in because our bank account gets empty, or, someone stabbed us in the back, someone stole something, someone copied something. So we let these things of life cause fear, worry, and doubt. So we try to take matters into our own hands. Right? Instead of patience, obedience. What is this situation trying to teach me? Right? So because we don't step into God's grace, we get our blessings, but it comes with a lot of consequences. Okay? A lot of consequences. So what does this tell us? Again, from Rebekah, is just let God lead. Just like Sarah, she suffered fear, doubt, wrongdoing. Right? And despite all of that, remember, despite all of that, God still gives his blessings. But your actions don't come without consequences. And consequences isn't a bad word. It could be like you do something like good and you get a good consequence. You do something bad, you get a bad consequence. So the question is, when you are in your waiting season of your business, whether you're up or down, what do you choose? Right? So now the question is, though, how do we actually invite God in? And I wanted to kind of start that and frame it because business definitely requires a lot of faith. Okay? You create your own paychecks. You don't have, the security of a 9 to 5 where you get your paycheck, you get your health insurance. Everything is kind of like, you're told what to do. You don't have that. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to do everything by yourself. So you got to have a lot of faith. You have to have a lot of discipline. You have to have a lot of diligence. You have to want to do this because, again, it is up, down, left, right. But it doesn't have to be that way, okay? Especially if you've got the vision to be called to be an entrepreneur. It's not for the faint of heart. So if God has shown you a vision of your entrepreneurship and of this success, let him lead. Okay, and I'm speaking from experience. When I did my first million, what did I end up at? Where did I end up at? I ended up in the hospital. I ended up broken. I ended up defeated. I took it the long way there. I was in a lawsuit. I had an ex-business partner sue me, knowing he was wrong, but still having to go through the process, hundreds of thousands of dollars, only to end up saying, like, you were right. But that depleted me. That drained me. Bleeding myself, let me tell you, just no. let God lead. So the question is, how do we actually let God lead? So again, I wanted to frame it with Rebekah and Sarah because this story of receiving God's promise and then like not accepting his peace through the promise and learning how to lead or let him lead and be a good steward is what we all go through. A lot of us receive the promise. We spend too much time in fear, worry, and doubt, and it doesn't allow us to actually live life. Okay. So we have to start retraining our faith and retraining our minds and building up our trust in God so that we're not spending any of our time on earth and fear, worry, and doubt. Because how many times do you worry about something that ends up solving itself? So learn from that. Retrain your mind, reframe it, rebuild it, whatever. Rebuild your subconscious, however you want to tell yourself this, so that you are not going through this cycle. I mean, it's like two women going through the same thing when God is like, when are you guys going to learn? And we are still repeating this to this day. Okay, it took me 3 years to learn this. So I'm speaking from experience on learning to just really live in God's grace. So now the question is, I ask myself is, okay, well, how do I actually let God in to my business? How do I let him lead? So one of the things that I have been doing, I don't know if anyone's familiar with like the Abraham Hicks, and she talks about a segment and intent, where basically each segment of your day, from when you're eating breakfast to when you're moving to your computer to when you're getting up to go for a walk to when you get in your car, that's a segment. Each segment, you set the intention on how you want that segment to go. So I flipped it a little bit and I call it prayer intent. So instead of me deciding how I want that segment to go, I pray for God's will to be done through me in that segment. So I call it prayer intention. So it's been very helpful because, again, I'm not the lead. I'm not the one that needs to be leading. God is. So when I pray for his will to be done in that segment, amazing things happen. God uses me. I can hear him. I can connect. And it's, again, better than me segment intending. So that's one way that I have learned to invite God into my business. Sorry, I don't know if my internet is being wonky. Oh, hey y'all. Hey Michelle. Hey Brandon. Hey Esther. I don't know if my internet is hey Marikar. Hey Tiki. Okay, so I'm gonna wait till my signal. Hold on. Okay, I'm just gonna make sure my signal is good. Hold on. Your computer to when you're getting up to go for a walk, when you get in your car, that's a I'm gonna wait till this video catches up really quick because I think my internet is being slow. Okay, hold on. What the front door, y'all? Okay, is my internet still wonky? Whatever. If it Okay, I'm waiting for my video to catch up so I could be live in real time. Okay, cool. Okay, basically, sorry, I was waiting for my internet to catch up. Okay, so that's one way I invite God in. But then this was dropped on me yesterday. So this is in Genesis chapter 24, verse 3 through 66. And this is when he sends his servant to go find a wife. And these were clear instructions on how to invite God into your business plans. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So the first step is that he receives the instructions. He receives the instructions. He needs to go to this town. He needs to find a wife that's inside of his family. He needs to bring her back. So you get these ideas, right? You get these instructions. You get some type of guidance, right? So what if you call them maybe like downloads, you get these ideas or whatever, and you're like, oh, I need to do this. That's you receiving your instructions. The next thing that you do is you make a plan. So in this part of the scripture, he talks about, okay, well, I'm going to go to the watering well. And if I find someone that, give me water and also give water to my camels, then I know she's the one. So you make a plan, whatever your plan is. But the first thing that you do, though, is you submit that plan to God. Okay, you submit to him, because sometimes it could be our plans and sometimes it's like, okay, God, like, is this good? Because if you ask God for confirmation, he will give it to you. He loves giving you confirmation. Okay, I get confirmation all the time where I'll be like, God, is this like what I'm supposed to be doing? And then I'll literally go have a conversation with someone and they'll be like, oh, and I'll be like, yes. So he's always asking for conversation. He's always going to give you confirmation. So submit it to God. Then the fourth thing that you do after you submit it to God is you pray for guidance, okay? And to give you direction, to give you vision. And during that time, you are waiting and you're watching your internet. Okay, yeah, when you receive the confirmation, then you accept the answer, thankfully, okay? Then once you receive your answer that your plan is a good plan, then you need to complete the plan. So one key step they have when he's, going to get the wife and bring Rachel back, is refuse any unnecessary delay. A lot of times this is then where your procrastination or your self-sabotage kicks in. So you get this beautiful. Okay, so I just switched to my hotspot because my wife, there was a storm yesterday and the internet has been weird. Okay, so this is key. Number 8 is refuse any unnecessary delay. Like once you get confirmation that you're like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and you have like your plan or all that stuff, this is usually where your self-sabotage comes in, where you actually you get the beautiful download, you get the beautiful ideas, but you don't actually go and execute on your vision or your plan. Because your upper limit, your self-sabotage, your procrastination, those type of things start to happen. And then because those things start to happen, it's weeks and weeks before you complete something. And then the more doubt creeps in, the more fear creeps in. So number 8 is so important. When you receive your answer that this is what you're supposed to be doing, do not cause any unnecessary delay. Okay, I understand that there are a lot of shedding, there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do, but this is, and I'm speaking from experience, okay? I have had a lot of unnecessary delay for a lot of my plans. And that is like, and then I go and I'm like, God, why aren't things happening? And he was like, because I'm still waiting for you to complete the task that I gave you 6 months ago. And I'm like, but wait, right? So do not allow any unnecessary delay. And number 9, most importantly, follow through on your plan. Okay, complete it, right? Get it done. So let me just repeat those steps again. Receive your instructions, this idea, your beautiful download, whatever you want to call it. Make a plan, okay? How are you going to complete it? What are the steps that you need to take? What are the processes? Submit that plan to God, okay? Pray for the guidance, wait, watch, observe, hear him, get confirmation, solidify that this is a God idea, not a your idea. Accept your answer thankfully, okay? Do not allow any unnecessary delay. Take action. Do not let that self-sabotage kick in. Do not let that procrastination kick in. Do not let those upper limits of like where you want to be, and then have them bring you back down. Do not do that. Follow through and complete your plan. This is how you let God in your business when you are trying to make big decisions. You can do this, before your day starts, but when you're, feeling stuck and you're asking for guidance, this is how you can invite him into your business. So if we want to tie those 3 stories together, Sarah's story, when she finally got, her promise, her son, right? And not living in fear, worry, and doubt while waiting for God's promise. The same thing that shadowed with Rebekah, right? Taking matters into her own hands, right? So you can either receive your promise and try to take it into your own hands and suffer the consequences of your own actions. Because let me tell you, just let God lead. Or you can let God lead, learn how to be obedient, sharpen your spiritual ears, learn how to hear him, and let him guide you to your promise while enjoying the fruits of the spirits, while enjoying peace, while enjoying joy, while enjoying love. Like we don't have to have fear, worry, and doubt. Like it just doesn't have to be that way as you get to the promise. Okay? Like if you believe in God and you believe that what he says is true and you believe in him and his character, then why would you doubt the promise? So we have to do whatever it takes to reframe our minds, okay? And this is why I believe it's so important to spend time in the Word and spend time in the Scripture, or else we don't know who God is. But when I'm feeling low, like if I'm fasting, I'm freaking hungry, okay? But I can just quote Philippians and just be like, oh my gosh, like I can do it. God was, Christ is the one who strengthens me. Like, and if I don't have that to lean on, then I have to rely on myself. And I'm gonna tell you, it's very difficult to rely on myself. So to sum it all up, this is what I took away from these stories in Genesis when trying to apply it and live practically and invite God into my business is I have to trust God and I have to trust his timing. Okay. There's a lot of things that I don't know that he knows. I started this idea in 2019 when I got out of the hospital. I was like a few weeks out of the hospital, and this idea for where it is today, I wrote it down in a notebook. It just like came pouring into me, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, like let's do this. The 2019 Terry is not capable of handling 2022 Terry right now, and I see that now, okay? And now that allows me to anchor in the principle and God's principle of trusting his timing and trusting that he needs to develop my character. He needs to build skills within me so that I can actually be a good steward of what he's going to give me. Because if he would have given this to me in 2019, I would not have been able to handle it. Okay. Number 2, follow Elijah's plan of letting God lead. So, going back to Genesis 24, 3 through 66, look at that plan. Use that as a framework for how to invite God into your business. Okay. And then number 3, build up your faith and character, okay? Your trust in God, your faith in God. Learn to steward what he has in peace, okay? And this kind of reminds me of literally like my most favorite scripture right now. Philippians chapter 4, 11 through 13. Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. Okay. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. So what that means is that because I have learned to be content with whatever I have, I can steward where I am now, find the strength and grace of God as he gets me to my next level. Okay. And then number 4, receives God's blessing from obedience. Okay. Not from disobedience and trying to take matters into your own hands. I mean, to parallel this story, I don't even know if that's the right word, but to reflect the story in a different way of like Sarah and Rebekah taking things into their own hands and causing so much disaster, strife, worry, fear on the way to their promise. Look at Jacob. He went through it. Okay. He was thrown down a well. He was sold into slavery. He was imprisoned, but he never once said, why is this happening to me? And try to take matters into his own hands. He always was obedient to God and asked, what can I do? What more can I do right now? And he receives God's full promise. But instead of like Sarah and Rebekah causing more ripples of consequences, of negative consequences, right, from being disobedient and trying to take things into their own hands, he just trusted God along the way. And never once was there any inkling to show that God was there with him. I mean, being thrown down he got the vision, he got the promise, right? When he saw his brothers bowing down to him, but getting thrown down the well, getting sold into slavery, is the wife lusting after him, being thrown into jail, being forgotten in jail, like over and over. Never once did, show like, God, like, are you there? Like, he never faltered. He always stayed obedient and received God's promise. So we can either live like Sarah or Rebekah, or we can live like, Joseph. Sorry, Jacob is his dad. Or live like Joseph. Okay. So hopefully this helps you. I just wanted to share my takeaway from yesterday because, I'm in the book of Numbers, like I mentioned, but something called me to go back to Genesis. And I think that was my only revelation that I had from yesterday. Yeah, something called me to go back to Genesis and share this with you guys. So hopefully it could help, especially for people, like I mentioned, that are trying to learn how to invite God into your business. And that is it, guys. If I have anything else, I will definitely share it. I will be bringing back some lives. I know that there's a lot of people that have been wanting me to do some audits. So I'm going to be bringing back the audits and the Q&As. But after I finish focus on the assignment, Terry, after I finish the new followers to sales stuff. So yes, that is it. If you guys have any thoughts or insights, drop them down. I'm going to save this in the guide section, and happy Tuesday. I will see you guys.